I'm all for women's rights, but I wouldn't call myself a feminist as such. What?
Well, oh my god! We don't do that here! Well, now we do! You'll see what we're gonna do about you!
So I thought that I'd record a speech that I've written for my history class regarding the riot girl movement, so punk rock feminism in the 90s. So I'll be reading it off pieces of paper. I'd call them cue cards, but it's just my speech written up. So yeah, have you ever seen me looking down at my crotch? I'm not actually looking down at my crotch. I'm looking at the piece of paper. The statement that I said before is something that I hear way too many young women in today's society saying. To understand what's wrong with the statement, one must have a clear understanding of the definition of feminism in itself, and also the ability to look past many of the misconceptions which have soiled it. Feminism is an extensive topic, one which has been subject to much speculation over the years. One possible definition, and the one which I most relate to, is that it involves the equality of women, the advocacy of equality of women, on the grounds of total equality to men, and the re-evaluation and destruction, essentially, of patriarchal values. It analyses and criticises the treatment of women throughout civilization, so ranging from ancient society to the post-World War era and into the present day. It also aims to be very progressive, criticising the values of the past and looking at how they influence the present, but also forming ideologies for the future. Contrary to popular belief, feminists are not man-haters. They do not necessarily wish to run rampant through the streets and attack all males within a 10-mile radius with a rusty chainsaw. Nor is a feminist necessarily a woman who cuts all her hair off, who dresses and acts like a man, who might be, in derogatory terms, labelled as a dyke. Being a powerful and outspoken woman who seeks independence from a largely male-dominated culture does not necessarily wish to ostracise or loathe the opposite sex. The underground feminist punk rock movement known as Riot Girl was born in the 1990s in the states of Washington and Oregon, and it sought to emphasise this. It encouraged women to abandon misconceptions of the feminist manifested over the years, and instead to embrace what it meant to be one. The movement addresses a wide range of issues including rape, domestic abuse, sexuality, race, the patriarchy, and female empowerment. It is a subculture mirroring the punk do-it-yourself ethic involving the creation of posters, zines, art, clothing, and political activism. It began with a group of girls getting together to talk about their main interests, punk rock and feminism, and all with a shared interest in finding a way to reach out to like-minded girls and women. Most of the movement is youth-oriented, but welcomes those from all over the world and celebrates individuality. Because the punk rock scene had been largely male-dominated, riot girl bands had to provide a lot of their own inspiration in their desire to create unique and innovative sounds. However, various influences can be traced back to the godmother of punk, Patti Smith, famed for her part in the New York City punk rock movement of the 70s, and Siouxsie Sioux and the Banshees, just to name a couple. What was clear was that for the most part, the punk movement was created by and for males. The entire ethos of punk was based around typically masculine qualities: aggression, anger, violence, crudeness. For a girl to become punk, she must reject the mainstream culture's femininity games and embrace the masculinist ideologies of punk, as adopting punk's style is anathema to conventional femininity. What Riot Girl aimed to do was not become like their male counterparts, but instead to twist the definition of punk rock and make it something that they could harness themselves. A band widely considered to be a pioneer for the movement is Bikini Kill. They're amazing. Just putting it out there. You should know they're amazing already, but they're an American group formed in Washington and in 1990. Before coming together to make music, the members had been collaborating on a fanzine of the same name. As a band, they were notorious for the controversial topics raised in their lyrics, including radical feminist statements which challenged the social and political norms of the time. This quote by drummer Tommy Vale pretty much encompasses what the band was about and why they actually were motivated to make music. So, I feel completely left out of the realm of everything that is so important to me. And I know that this is partly because punk rock is for and by boys mostly, and partly because punk rock of this generation is coming of age in a time of mindless career girl bands. Live performances were a very important part in spreading the Riot Grrrl manifesto. The power and energy of punk culture was diffused into their music and reflected in the way they held themselves on stage. Although punk bands such as the Sex Pistols had been notorious for their shocking performances, the masses had yet to experience the vulgarity and shamelessness of young women, and their out-of-control and oftentimes salacious online on-stage behaviour proved incredibly controversial. Spitting, profanity, wreathing on stage, and beating themselves in time to the music. Women exhibited their bodies in typically unfeminine and derogatory ways, emphasizing disorder, filth, unrestrained pleasure, and ugliness, in contrast to the distinct, finished, and authoritarian classical body. Kathleen Hanna, lead singer of Bikini Kill, is a celebrated voice of the movement, and has been part of several other collaborations and side projects, all advocating the same values. She speaks of her performances with Bikini Kill with mixed emotions. It was also super schizo to play shows where guys threw stuff at us, called us cunts, and yelled, "Take it off," during our set. And then the next night to perform for throngs of amazing girls, singing along to every lyric and cheering after every song. During performances, she is renowned for writing insults and slurs all over her body. Words such as slut and bitch were supposed to reflect what members of the audience were presumably thinking about them. Bratmobile is also a band considered to be a driving force behind the beginnings of the movement. Two Oregon University students, Alison Wolfe and Molly Newman, were collaborating on a feminist fanzine called Girl Germs, and after time they joined together with guitarist Aaron Smith to form the band. Because they wanted to have an authentic punk rock sound, they were encouraged to listen to the Ramones for inspiration. In response to that advice, Wolfe states that something in me clicked. Like, okay, if most boy punk rock bands just listen to the Ramones, and that's how they write their songs, then we'll do the opposite, and I won't listen to any Ramones, and that way will sound different. The Riot Grrrl movement is largely associated with America, where it saw its beginnings, and where its innovators came together and developed as bands, and where they rose to fame. However, the desire for change was being stirred up universally, and punk rock groups were coming together in all parts of the globe, advocating for equality. Huggy Bear were an English Riot Grrrl band active from the years of 91 to 94. They greatly admired and supported the movement in America. They wanted to create feminist awareness in British teenagers, whom they believe were largely disinterested and oblivious of punk rock's potential in raising recognition for injustices in society. They worked closely with Bikini Kill as the Riot Grrrl movement gained popularity on both sides of the Atlantic. Huggy Bear, along with Bikini Kill, toured in England in the spring of '93. This further generated a wave of international interest in Riot Grrrl and a storm of controversy in the British press. During their time playing together, the band refused to be photographed or interviewed by mainstream press, wishing to remain as low profile as they could. They had no interest in selling out and wished instead to spread the word of the revolution. In conclusion, Riot Grrrl did not end at the turn of the century, or when the most famous of the movement's bands broke up. It should not simply be filed away under an era of punk rock which saw a group of angry girls on stage thrashing guitars and screaming about liberation. It shouldn't be remembered merely as a novel opportunity for women to freely express their views on society's injustices, and to eventually cease and allow the true punk rockers to reclaim the stage. Riot Grrrl is about so much more than just the music it generated. It was the means through which to challenge society at the time, and to protest against political and social values which were held by the masses. It lives on to be the means of inspiration for girls today to stand up for what they believe in and to stand up for their rights.